Welcome to the Truth Podcast. I'm your host, Hany Rambod. I'm here with my co-host, Austin. And we finally cooled off here in Dallas.
Oh my gosh, it's so nice. I should have brought a hoodie today. I didn't end up doing it, but we much needed.
Guess what I brought? I brought the FST7 hoodie.
I need one of those, but I'm guessing those
I don't even think they're for sale.
I don't think so.
No. I think that's a special invite only.
I see how it is.
You like, pardon the pun.
Everything's a special invite now.
Everything is a special. You want to buy the sweatshirt? It's got a special invite dial.
If we ever have any Evogen events, we'll just put out
special.
We send them out as special invites.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. So talking about that, obviously for those of you that know what we're talking about, which is 90% of you, we're talking about Derek Lunsford getting the special invite. One of the things that we do want to mention is the fact that it's been polarizing. It's been a little bit polarizing out there. Some people love the fact that he gets to compete, and the others say, hey, he should have qualified.
It's very 50-50.
Yeah.
From what I've seen, I feel like maybe it's quiet people. I don't know, but
whatever percentage it is, it's still, there's two major opinions here. My thing to even mention this is the fact that when you look at it as a business and people say, what about Derek Lunsford competing? I think people want to see him on a world stage because the last time they saw him on a world stage, he won the 212. He was the active 212 champion. But needless to say, he's working hard. He's gotten a lot of flack. Some people said that that's why he should have done a show. Others say, no, we like the fact that he is going to be wrapped up and we're going to see him against the open guys at the Olympia. Any way you look at it, it's turning out to be a great show because you went from a couple of years of obscurity with nothing new really going on to Andrew Jacked. You have Chriso, who's still going to have to compete. You have several other bodybuilders. You have Hector. You have Patrick Johnson, who just did well.
Or even guys that are technically new to the scene.
That's Walker, right. I mean, there's a big, and like you said, there's Hunter, there's Nick Walker. The whole spot to talk about now is that he's back with Matt Jansen. That is very big news. And I'm still waiting to see what that's all about because I know that Dom was just out there, his trainer. And so that's interesting to see because I don't know if that's going to be talked about. I don't know if that eventually want to talk about, but I know as a person who's worked with many people, that's what everybody wants to hear. So who knows? Maybe we'll get Nick on here to talk a little bit about it. I'm sure maybe on Fuad's podcast, he's going to talk, but I think that it's one of those things where he felt comfortable to go back and maybe they had some kind of, this is what I'm guessing because I haven't spoken to either a person out there or don't know any extra information out there that besides whatever everybody else knows, is that there might have been some kind of misunderstanding or they might have been able to kind of speak things through is what I'm guessing. But again, waiting to hear back on that.
I think from the outside looking in, it would make sense that it's like if you had great success under this person, which just clicked with you, it would make sense to not want to switch that up leading into a show, especially the Olympia.
That's right. That's right. Or something maybe wasn't jiving properly. That's with the new person. Which does happen. And so you're getting at that critical stage, 11, 12 weeks out. It's time to
that's getting close.
Get off the pot on that one. And if you're not really jiving well with either the information or the personality or whatever that is, it's like, you better hurry up and do this because you're getting deeper into the spread. So I think that's one of the other reasons why the timing was the way it was. But we don't know how many weeks behind the scenes they were trying to mend fences.
I mean, it could have been weeks earlier or whatever. You never know.
Exactly. But that is newsworthy. And I feel that the biggest thing at this point now is that we have a couple of people. Andrew Jack didn't disappoint. UK went in there, won it. I think that
some people were disappointed.
Well, at what?
Some people were disappointed because he set some things really high, like meaning like the expectations. Because he said originally when he came off the Texas Pro, he said this was 75%. We're going to come in at 100 at the next show, and implying UK. He was kind of like his thing is like, we're going to be 25% better, which that to me wouldn't really make sense because he would just like come in, especially this close to a level where you can take the show, but then come in at 100% at the Olympia. But he had talked about that. And then he did come back later within a YouTube video and talk about, okay, I wasn't at my best at the UK. He talked about that. He wasn't at his best afterwards, but still obviously was good enough to take the show. But I think that how
far do you think he was off? compared to Texas? You saw him in Texas in person.
Yeah. I think that like it's hard to tell.
And again, because you weren't in the UK.
Yes.
But I'm just.
Yeah. I would say that like, I've heard people, like it's hard to tell from photos because again, different photos, different light, all that kind of stuff. It's hard to say. I think that he did look a tiny bit sharper in Texas, but obviously still extremely impressive.
Right.
So I don't know. He killed it either way. You see him come out on stage. It's like gnarly.
So this is my take on
this. All right, here we go.
I let you go first. Now I'm going to go ahead and go. Number one, it doesn't matter. He won.
Yeah, exactly.
He should have won.
Exactly.
That's number one. Number two, you have different lighting, and that makes up a lot of difference. If you go back and you look at Phil Heath pictures at different shows, the Ironman, which is known to be some of the best lighting, the USA is known to be some of the best lighting. Back then, they would have almost the lighting had like a natural tone to it instead of a ton of LED. The bigger the production, ladies and gentlemen, please listen to this. The bigger the production, the more washed out the lighting is because they're using a lot of LED lights. With that, a lot of those red tones end up really mixing up with that tan and that color, and it can really create a lot of muddiness in people's physiques. That's why when you're there, it's a big difference versus photos, especially depending on the level. You would think, the Olympia or the Arnold or certain shows that have more prestige might have better lighting. It's not that way. It's not a matter of better lighting for photography. It's better setups with LEDs and having advertisements and the stage setup that they've created.
Just having flashbacks to that one Olympia backdrop that was like...
That was the strobe lights and all that.
It was so much, and it was so distracting.
It was. And now, hopefully Tamer and the team are going to take that in consideration. Yeah. So when it comes to the excitement and being there, it was cool with some energy, but when you were trying to look at the physiques, it did become distracting. And going back to this, so I don't regress, you don't have apples and apples. You have apples and oranges. That's why, did he look about 10% off? Yeah, but it could have also been from the lighting. Absolutely. But we know that substantially he wasn't better, but he didn't need to be. What he needs to do is he needs to peak at the Olympia, not at the Arnold UK. Now, could he have left the door open if there was a heavy hitter that came in and would have beat him? Possibly, but it didn't happen. Yeah. So again, it's like he said, she said, could have been, would have been, whatever. It didn't. So for those that like to talk about this on YouTube or online, you can sit there and create your own content and come up with it. But he won. Yeah. It was clear cut. Yeah, that's it. Now, going back to the Olympia prep, now they're going to do whatever they can to make sure he preps and improves for the Olympia coming up in 11 weeks, because that's what it is. Yeah. That's the important one. Yep. Exactly. So, but what's also exciting is the fact that I believe Patrick Johnson had won just France. That was a good, couple of people that were really good between him and Hector. I think that you're going to start seeing a couple of more of these shows coming up. You have Romania that I believe Hector's doing. So he could still qualify if he hasn't already. I believe he's got some points, but he doesn't have a clear-cut road to the Olympia. But if he ends up winning one of these shows, and these guys are all exciting. Yeah. And then you have Samson. Yeah. Everyone's speaking about him and what kind of damage he can do. And I think all of these things put together has made this the most exciting Olympia in years. Yeah. And I'm super just excited.
There's just so many people.
Vegas.
Yeah,
there are.
It
went from like there's nobody in open bodybuilding to like, holy shit, this is going to be an epic war.
Yeah.
So, this person can be in the top 3. Now all of a sudden it's great if you're in the top 6. Yeah. Maybe not even the top 10. Yeah. Because it's going to be stacked. Yeah. So it's super exciting. Mm-hmm. But I think the other thing that we were talking about for this particular podcast was these people that have unrealistic expectations of hitting it out of the park. We have 3 different positions, or I should say divisions, that are very different. And I want to talk a little bit about why open bodybuilding is so difficult, why it's why they get paid $400,000 winning, and why some of the other divisions are much, much less. It's really because it takes so long to be able to peak and be able to be at that elite level in that division, because it's so all-inclusive. You got to have a great back. You got to have a great chest. You have to have conditioning. You have to have thickness. You have to have size. You got a guy that's winning it now the last 2 years that just did his updated photos. Let's talk about Big Rammy.
Yeah.
His updated photos. He looks the best he's ever looked this far out.
Yeah, he looks nuts.
And he looks great. Now, what you look into is that how many years does an open bodybuilder take to peak versus any other division?
Because how old is he? I can't remember off the top of my head.
Big Rammy's got to be in his mid-30s, I'm guessing.
Okay.
You can look it up.
Yeah, I'm going to Google it real quick.
I just know he has 2 wives. It's like how many?
38.
38. Yeah. 2 wives took X number of years off your lifespan, especially at the same time.
That's a lot to juggle with a prep.
It is. It is.
A girlfriend's a lot to juggle with a prep or something. Like, dude, 2 wives? Oh, man.
Yeah, but when you look at it, this is why these guys take a long time to get to that level. You have to be... It's a freak of nature when you have somebody in their mid-20s like a Nick Walker who's in the... I think he's in 26, 27. And you have some of these guys in their late 20s even. They don't start peaking until their 30s. Yeah. And then by then, there's people that are out because they try to push it too hard in the gym. They got muscle tears that they don't come back from. They beat up their organs that they can't come back from. Yeah. And it's such an all-inclusive... Bodybuilding is just like, it's a lifestyle, not a sport.
Yeah.
It's a lifestyle.
It's 24/7.
It is 24/7. You're thinking about your next meal. You're thinking about your next training session. You're thinking about making sure that you're getting active recovery. You're thinking about trying to sleep and getting so many hours of sleep so you relax. And if you don't have any of those things at a high level, you're not going to create that formula of success.
Yeah.
And because you need size and conditioning at a 220 pounds plus, what's going to happen is it's going to take a lot longer than somebody who doesn't have to train legs for physique. Or if you are a classic physique, you have to be able to refine your physique, but you don't have to be going up against a 300-pound Big Rammy on stage.
Yeah, just the time investment's very different.
It is. Yeah. It is. And that's why there's one Sandow.
Yeah.
And that's why that guy that wins that show gets a $400,000 check.
Yeah, I think where people get it wrong is they're like, I'm putting in a lot of work too, or whatever. Yeah, it's incredibly hard for any athlete to be at that top level competing in any division. It's going to be hard. Well, it's kind of just a different animal.
And so just to break this down, Andrew Jack still killed it. He did a great job. We have a couple of new people that are on the cusp of getting pro cards, start winning. Crizio, is really somebody that's super impressive on video and pictures. So I can't wait to see what he looks like next to these guys.
Yeah.
And the other thing that's kind of panning out that I've realized is that there's no major heavy hitters that are competing against some of these guys before the Olympia. So you don't really get to see...
It'll be the first time you see them next to each other.
Right. Yeah. Because I would have loved to see Ian or Hunter or Nick or any of these other guys next to Andrew Jacked.
Yeah.
But because they're all waiting for the Olympia and Ian had picked a show a little bit earlier, what happened was we're going to see all of them come to this giant just arena of bodybuilding. Is going to be like Gladiator.
It's going to be exciting. I think it's going to suck, but I think it's going to be really disappointing for quite a few people too.
Oh, of course
there's going to be some people that are just shoved out of the top 10.
And absolutely.
And that's coming rough.
It's going to be rough because it's going to be a matter of who peaks, who doesn't.
Yeah.
You have a lot of muscle maturity now starting to show in some of these guys. And I feel that it's not going to be as cut and dry as it was before. You're going to have a lot of comparisons, a lot of call outs, and you're going to start having to really decide on conditioning versus shape versus size. And now it's going to be tougher than ever for the judges.
I don't think I've asked you this straightforward. Do you think somebody can touch Ramy this year? Like, do you think
it's hard because he's so big and now he's definitely getting conditioned.
Yeah.
So it is going to be tough. I think it is tough because I think that Ramy is really going out of his way to try to pull away from the pack. And I think after what happened last year with not peaking, especially the first night, I think he doesn't want to go through the stress of that again. Yeah. So he started out really early.
Is this Samson? I'm trying to remember. That's another 300 plus pound guy.
Yeah, he's another real big boy.
Yeah.
Another big boy.
Man, it is just, I don't keep saying it over and over again, but it is just going to be it's going to be an intense year.
Right. Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. So going back to this whole thing about what the Olympia open bodybuilding is dying, no. Whatever you thought, people thought it was on life support. The people thought this was, now we will really see what's happened because it has gotten an infusion of these great guys all in the last couple of months. And now we're going to be able to see what these guys do. And honestly, if you have not bought your tickets, buy your tickets to the Olympia because it's going to
Did you get my ticket?
You know, I already have your ticket, right?
Yeah, so you sure. I know,
but you know what? If you do want to buy his ticket, it's going to be up on eBay. Just
going to be sharking it out there.
It'll have a high reserve, but it'll definitely be available.
I think actually, like, which it's interesting, kind of looping it back to the separate topic you talked about like why it takes so long and all these things. I think there was a lull. Yeah, I would say that there's a lull where I wasn't super invested in the Olympia as much anymore because there wasn't anybody who's like, well, and it's just like, were these people just hibernating? And then all of a sudden, this past year or two, it has just been like,
yeah, I guess hibernating would be a good word because what they're doing is they're putting themselves in a situation where they can be competitive.
Yeah.
So these athletes aren't going to be in such a rush to get their ass beat.
Yeah.
I did the same thing with Phil Heath.
Yeah.
2 years. He qualified. I didn't put him in the Olympia. So there's some people in there that are just doing a variable version of that. They're my slightly different variation of that. And I think that that's rightfully so. Because if you go in there and you're not ready, it can really deflate you. Not to say that it'll end you, but it's really bad for your morale. Because if you go in to a show thinking you're going to be top 5 at a national show and you're like in third call out, it's going to screw you up.
You see that time and time again.
You do. What happens is I've had people who I got ready for a show that ended up placing second, maybe by 1 point from their pro card. Never came back. Just, I mean, they're blown away.
Yeah.
And that's what it's going to build a champion mindset is just saying, okay, you know what? It didn't happen for me now, but I'm going to be hungry. I'm going to cross my T's, dot my I's. I'm going to go out of my way to work hard, look at my photos and be able to take it to the next level. Yeah. And I feel that that's what Ramy is doing right now.
Yeah.
Okay. Even Hany is doing the best he can. And people don't understand unless they've been through this, the type of person it takes to be able to work through adversity because you have issues with your wife or your husband, your kids, your parents, your job, other things, sponsors, even if you're not sponsors, because most people don't even have a sponsor. It's called the JOB, right? They have some kind of 9 to 5 that they have or some kind of small business or something that they're running to try to burn and pay the bills. So many people they can't get through the ability to do both.
Yeah.
And you have to juggle so many different things. And bodybuilding can be very, very just selfish.
Yeah.
And what you have to do is you have to put a lot of those things aside and be able to segment those things in the proper manner to be able to get through the minutia so that you can still hit your meals, still get your training in, still be able to not get pissed off because your training partner didn't show up or somebody that was supposed to help you didn't show up, or find a reason. And that's what people do. I hate the victim mentality because everybody tries to go out there and say the reason why I wasn't A, B, and C was because of D, E, and F. And what that means is that you find some reason because there was traffic. I didn't go to the gym. Something happened. I got upset. So I didn't end up doing my diet that day because I couldn't do it. So I ended up having to either miss meals or ended up going through a drive-through and eating shit. That's what most people do. That's why the people that do well in bodybuilding are so successful in life because they build discipline.
Yeah.
That discipline, Arnold Schwarzenegger, why is he a person that was the highest paid action star in the history of Hollywood? Why was he running the 5th largest economy in the world, California, the governor of California? Why was he so successful? Because of the discipline that he learned to work with and how to deal with adversity so that he can take himself to the next level. When he had a goal, he would hit it because nothing was going to be acceptable. Nothing less was going to be acceptable.
Yeah.
And there was no excuses. And that's why he is what he is and who he is, because those types of people are ones that win. The ones that don't are the ones that find a reason to bail.
Yeah.
And that's what I deal with all the time. When you're dealing with athletes, and again, up until probably about 3 years ago, when I was working with amateurs, the hardest thing to do is to segment out the weak.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about the weak guy that can't bench or the guy that couldn't squat more than 2 or 3
more
plays.
mentally.
It's 100% more mental, because they're, number one, they got to be coachable. And most people that come into bodybuilding are not coachable. Why are they not coachable? Why do you think that most people in bodybuilding are not coachable?
I would say either one, they don't want it bad enough to actually put in all of the stuff that they specifically need to do and just take it in, or two, they just have their own weird expectations, their own ideas of that they know what to do better for their body than somebody else. But
exactly. The reason why most cannot follow directions at a high level is because they feel like they know more than the person they're asking the advice from.
Yeah.
Because either they're weak and they don't want to do the extra work that person is advising them to do. Could be cardio, could be training, could be certain with levels of caloric intake, carbohydrate, whatever. Or it's from someone who just is distracted to the point where they come up with those excuses.
Yeah.
Because inevitably they're going to make that excuse in every portion of their life.
Yeah. Yeah. That's one of the things I can't stand, is when you can tell somebody is like, they're saying they want a certain goal or accomplishment. They're saying that they want to compete. They want to lose, even just more on fitness level. They want to lose weight, whatever it might be. But then we'll complain about certain steps that it takes to get there, or sacrifice time of like, oh, I didn't have time to go to the gym, or I didn't have time to go do this. I'm like, no, you just didn't want it. You really didn't. Like, if you put $1 million in front of somebody and say they need to do X, Y, and Z, they will get it done to get what they want. It's like, you will block off time. It doesn't matter if you're working 12 hours. If you really want to lose weight, you'll take the hour it takes the night before to lay out some meals or whatever it might be, and the time to hit cardio before or after. Like, if you really truly want it, and that's just on the fitness level, that's not taking into account competing. You know, like at that level, that's why I would say, yeah, now thinking about it a little bit more, I agree when it comes to the top open guys. It's like, that is but that is years and years and years of not missing meals and getting all of that stuff in and just being on track with every single little thing. And like, that's, you know, that 400K for just the top one. If you were to average that out, that is not much when it comes to money hourly for the amount of hours.
And I still think that the other divisions should still get paid more. So I'm 100%. Not saying that, but what I'm saying is the incubator to get into a top Olympia open class, top 5 is so difficult. It takes so long and so few people can get to that point. That's why there's one Sandow, and that's why there's one $400,000 check. Not to say the other divisions shouldn't get paid more, but that's a little bit different, because what they have to do is they have to prioritize the money, and that's up to the organization or the promoter on how they're going to turn around and do that. But what I am saying is everybody works hard, but you can't find excuses because somebody else has better genetics than you. Guess what? There's people that showed up with money because of who their parents were. They had opportunities to go to really good schools. They had really good opportunities to get better jobs. But you can't sit there and bitch about it and then not turn around and do something about it. You can't change that.
There's nothing that's decided.
That's right. That's right. Life isn't fair. Fucking get over it. And what you got to do is same thing with bodybuilding. I turn around and I hear, oh, well, Andrew jacked because he's tall and he's got great shape. Guess what? Make up for it. There's a guy called Branch Warren. He plays top 2 in the Olympia. He had the exact opposite. He didn't have height, he didn't have shape, and he still made it up for it with conditioning, graininess. Hany Chopin, same thing. He doesn't have the best shape in terms of like, hey, 26-inch, 28-inch waist, or really tall, or any of those things, or muscle bellies in every single body. So what does he make up for it? He makes up for it in density, and he makes it up for it in conditioning, and he makes it up for just in a granite-like physique that a lot of people do not have on that Olympia stage. These people are making up for it in other ways. And I feel that when you really look at people and where they go in life, I want to talk a little bit about Seth Feroce. Seth Feroce also took all of those basic needs of wanting to prove himself on stage and created those kinds of he took those things, combined everything that he learned in bodybuilding when we worked together, and was able to launch a great clothing line with AAR. He has his own supplement company with Axe and Sledge, and his own culture. Because what he did was he learned from the basics of what bodybuilding taught him and the discipline of not being a pussy. And that's what he talks about. I know this thing's not going to get monetized or whatever, and it doesn't matter because I don't think any of my things have been monetized, but I don't even give a shit. My thing is that people need to stop making excuses, because when you look at it, and at some point we got to bring Seth back on, because I haven't had Seth on since the early days of this podcast, a year and a half, 2 years ago. And what I want to do is I want to turn around and talk about mindset. So when you look at these bodybuilders and you want to say, it's all drugs, it's all this, it's all that. It's just like, that's just like saying somebody's going to be successful because they came from money. Well, that doesn't mean you can't be successful. That just means you have to work hard and life isn't fair.
Well, and also you have to have discipline with those. Like, you got to be on a schedule. You have to be not going off and letting your mind take over and take too much or whatever it might be, or try to go off there's discipline in every single categories of these things. And if you're just casting that out there as some sort of way of making yourself feel better about not doing it and not accomplishing your goals, then that's on you.
Yeah, well, your mental fitness is just as important as your physical fitness. And that's where you have to have endurance, because you're not going to always have this uptrend. You're not going to have that. I mean, going back to the Seth example, Seth Feroce was very, very, right out of the gates, people called him the next Dorian Yates. And what ended up happening was he ended up getting caught up in that, the pressure of that. And so when he wasn't able to perform at the level that everybody wanted him to, instead of taking a step back to take 2 steps forward, he just kind of buckled, and he just went down a couple of different paths. Felt like, and again, I'm being very open about this because he's spoken about this, that he thought that drugs would make up for it. It didn't. It made his physique worse. And then it toxified him. Instead of just saying, what got me here? Hard work, conditioning, making those little changes, those little bit of changes, instead of saying, I'm going to go up into the open class and I need to go up 10 or 15 pounds, when your frame cannot do that. Imagine if Hany would have done that. He would have just went way backwards. If he tries to go too big, any year, if he tries to go too big, it's not going to work for him, because his frame can only handle so much. And your trademark conditioning is what puts you apart from the big, tall, big guys. Can some of the big guys get away with less conditioning? Sure, because they're 300 pounds on stage. Okay, love it or hate it. Some people hate it because they go, God, this person's still better quality versus quantity. Some people say, no, that's why it's called bodybuilding. The bigger guy should win, even if it's 10 or 20% less conditioning. He's got so much more muscle mass. Again, it's a subjective sport. It's not a track and field event where you're hitting 100 meters and you have to hit at a certain time, and this guy wins and this guy doesn't.
I think we should implement that, though, from the sprinting.
Oh, you're saying that we got to put in
open guys from one end of the stage to the other and see who had a physical test in there.
At the end of the day, quit your bitching, get on stage and make it happen. And if you're still thinking of doing a show and you've never done a show, you have to do a show. I did shows. Okay. Yes, I did natural bodybuilding. Yes, I didn't do anything to the level of my athletes, but I still suffered. I did 2 hours of cardio. I have done 0 carbs just to see what would happen, because I was young and I wanted to take notes and understand the process of what a person goes through physically and mentally when you have to diet that hard. Did I over diet? Absolutely. Did I overeat? No, because I was always going the other way. If anything, I wish I would have gone a little bit further with having the ability to do a broader range at the time, where I would say, hey, let me see how this would be. But I was always worried about spilling, and I underate when I was even carbing up. I felt like even the time where I did peak my best, I was eating consistently, but I learned from that process. And the key was to be able to be disciplined, to get your ass up at 4:30 in the morning before class when I was going to UC Santa Barbara, and I was taking biology, biochemistry. I was taking organic chem, which weeds out 60, 70% of all the pre-med students. And I was able to complete those classes, even during summer school, even with a professor that was a traveling professor from Stanford, and he wanted to turn around and try to fail everybody just because he thought it was cool. I had to deal with that shit. Yeah. And I still did my cardio. I still dieted. I still had my Tupperware in the classroom. And I was still sticking to my natural roots because I wanted to make sure that I was still going to do those types of shows that I had committed to because of a plethora of reasons. But it was about discipline. And that same discipline helped me build Evogen. That's the same discipline that helped me garner the best athletes. Like I like putting together those types of athletes was not something that was just by chance. It was been lucky if it was one or two, but being able to herd these people that was going to end up becoming great was something that I was able to do because I knew to bring a level of that discipline and a little bit of that that experience that I had gone through and take those bits and pieces, learn from those, and be able to work with these athletes to try to get them to the best version of themselves. Yeah. All of those things combined is what helped make me successful. And what I want to share with you during this podcast is that put the excuses aside. Stop making excuses. We talked a little bit about the Arnold. We talked a little bit about the France show in very, very, small amount of detail. But in the end, stop making excuses, because I feel like I was on the drive here this morning and all I kept thinking about was that I look at my phone and I see so many different things around the world where people make excuses for things. And I feel that you need to turn that around by saying, I'm going to create a game plan and I'm going to start doing shit that is out of my comfort zone. The days that you don't want to go train, if you're listening to this podcast, the days you don't want to train are the days that you need to train.
The best workouts, in my opinion.
Well,
always, in my opinion,
I'm not 100% in agreement of it. They're the best workouts, but they're the best workouts for you because what you did was you overcame a mental block. For some reason, you didn't listen to your inner bitch voice. That inner bitch voice is what we want to talk about. How do you be able to just knock that dude right off of your shoulder and say,
like that needs to be a t-shirt. I'm just thinking, don't listen to your inner bitch voice.
I'm sure it already is. Yeah. And I think my good friend Andy Frisella talks about it all the time. Yep. And what has to happen is you have to make sure to be able to do things that you're not able to do on a regular basis because of whatever reasons that you come up with on a regular basis. So whether it's training, dieting, nutrition, if you're listening to this podcast and you're getting ready for a show or you're thinking of doing a show, do the show. It will make you a better human being. You'll be more successful at your career, whether you're an entrepreneur and you work for a company or you're an entrepreneur and you're trying to start a company. You 100%, take my word for it. You're going to be thanking me. You're going to be sending me emails. You're going to be sending me DMs and say thank you because you're going to listen to this podcast and you're going to go out of your comfort zone. And that's it. Go out of your comfort zone, find a plan, put a plan together, and stay away from negative fucking people. Yeah. Because those types of people will drag you down to the abyss. One of the main things I did coming up as a trainer was I stayed away from all the trainers around me. When I was in San Jose growing up, these other trainers that were doing the same thing I was doing, whether it's contest prep, this and that, didn't listen to any of them, wasn't around any of them. And I just kept my eyes forward and I had blinders on. Go from one success to the next. If it wasn't successful, figure out why, how to make those people better, and bring up and put time into people that actually appreciate what the fuck you do for them. Not the people that you want them to like you because they might go talk shit if you guys end up parting ways. Stop working in a scared place. I did that. That's if I could go back and talk to myself 20 years ago, that's the number one thing I would make sure to reiterate to the younger Hany is that stop worrying about what could have happened or what may happen because of some type of parting of ways. There's a lot of times where I did listen to myself and I did end up parting ways with athletes because I just didn't feel like it was a really good fit. But if I would have been able to stick to that a little bit sooner and I would have been a little bit more disciplined on that, I think I would have been even farther along.
I'm just taking all that in. I'm just taking a lot of stuff in there. Yeah.
That's it. This podcast was supposed to be about a couple of other things.
Yeah, we actually had a completely different plan, but it's like, that's when some of the best stuff comes out.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. And I just think that what people really need to do is make sure they buy their tickets to Olympia. Yes. Make sure also, for those of you that are really giving me awesome feedback on the FST7 app, thank you so much. We're getting a lot of you that are giving me really good feedback that I can do for the next program that I'm going to be putting out. If you haven't had a chance to use the FST7 training program, but you want access to it, all you got to do is go into the link down below, go to hanyrambod.com. You can download the app. You get 2 weeks for free. Go ahead and use the code Hany. It'll give you 25% off either a prepaid for a year, or it'll give you 25% off your first month. But either way, you still get 14 days for free. Yeah. So, and then you can cancel if you don't like it. If you do, keep rolling with it. I'm going to be adding more content to it. There's 2 programs on there right now that I've worked on. There's a third that I am in this current month I'm going to be finishing up. So, and Android will be coming out soon. So if you are an Android user, stay tuned. That is going to be coming out. But I feel that a lot of you that have been DMing me, giving me some suggestions on it, I really appreciate that, because I want to give you what you guys want instead of what I'm assuming you need. So it's been really cool. Okay. And, yeah, man, I just kind of went off.
I did FST7 pullovers yesterday. I've been walking around with imaginary lat syndrome all day, so it works.
Well, is it imaginary lat syndrome, or are you sore and they're swollen? Because
it is, yeah. But I still am just.
That's it. Have you decided what show you're gonna do?
I don't know. I'm still kind of like
classic, right?
Yeah, that was the last show I did. Okay. It would for sure be classic, but I think at this point I'm just kind of feeling it out. I've got a lot of other cool projects going on in life, and I'd rather be able to prioritize it when I can prioritize it and go all in. It's like I'd rather. I can't remember what show it's from, but it's from Parks and Recreation. The guy that says, "I don't half-ass 2 things, whole-ass 1 thing," and it's kind of like I'd rather focus in, and then whenever I have the capability to do so, because if this next show, I'd want to go all in on and really do it. So we'll see. But if I do, it'd probably be like May of next year.
May of next year.
Yeah, probably.
All right, when do you come train with me?
Oh boy, we'll see about that. We'll see about that.
Why are you sweating right now? Why are you sweating right now?
I've watched too many of those workouts.
Yeah, you have watched a lot of them.
Yeah,
it's okay. It's all right. And then just a quick little update. David Butler is getting ready for his show this weekend. We're going to try to get him on the podcast here in the next couple of days, so that we can turn around and talk a little bit about his first time getting ready to be on stage. You're going to be flying out with them to be able to kind of document the whole thing.
Keep an eye on the Evogen Instagram stories, because we'll be documenting a lot of it there and across some of the other platforms also. But that's what we'll be doing, the kind of like day-by-day check-ins and all of that. It'll be fun.
Yeah, and for those of you that don't know who David Butler is, he is someone that I had met at the Absolute Recomp Gym here in North Richland Hills, which is just a suburb of Dallas. And he is getting ready for his first show. He's a natural bodybuilder, 19 years old. He's about 5'10", 170 pounds right now, less than a week out, several days out, from his first show. Somebody who I saw that had some good arms, just was really training hard in the gym, but not really optimizing it. Was giving him a lot of suggestions in the last 4 or 5 months. And then we decided to hook up, and I was going to try to help him out. And then next thing you know, he's like, "Hey, all this helping out is making me look like I might be able to compete. Do you think so?" And I said, "Sure, you should be able to do a teenage show. And you want to do a natural show." So he is going to be doing the NPC Natural Ohio, Dave Lieberman's show this weekend. So if you're in the neighborhood, you want to go check that show out. That's going to be.
I'll be signing autographs. I'll be out there. So just
usually I believe Jay's guest posing, or I don't think he guest posing, but he might be a guest. I would have to look and see who it is this year, but that's who it's been in the past. But if you guys want to basically know anything about specifics regarding this prep for this natural bodybuilder, and this was also brought up because one of the reasons why I did this, because everyone wanted to say, "Well, you only work with the best. You only work with the guys that are already like up at the top." Well, no, those are the ones that I've picked recently. And the other ones you don't know about, because some of them are celebrities, some of them are pro athletes in other sports that I work with, and I don't necessarily talk about. So what I did is decide to find somebody who I can talk about that was freely available to be able to do a series with. So David was local, and he's getting ready for his first show. And he comes from my personal genre, which is natural bodybuilding, because I feel everybody should start there. And then later, if they decide to go enhanced, they can, because it's more of a healthier alternative. if you go out and you start to supercharge a car that hasn't been really fully built out properly,
wheels gonna fall off.
Wheels fall off, and you're gonna blow a motor. So, again, I've been a very, very big open advocate of natural bodybuilding for a long time, but I think that people just don't realize how much so. Mostly on my seminars and when I'm doing talks around the country, sometimes around the world, at these big trade shows. But I feel like this is something that I really was near and dear to my heart, because of all the things that were going on in bodybuilding, all the deaths in bodybuilding, and how people tend to push the needle literally too much. Yeah. And so if you haven't seen the series yet, go check it out. A lot of it's been posted up on the Evagen Nutrition channel on YouTube. And I feel that this is going to be really cool because we're going to be able to document the last couple of days. Yep. And so check out the Evagen Nutrition Instagram page, because we're going to be doing some lives. We're also going to be doing some of the behind the scenes as well. Yeah. Getting ready for the show.
Takeover is leading into the show.
Correct. Yeah. Correct. So again, Hany Rambod, Austin, and that's the truth.